Penguin Random House Audio presents Let the Great World Spin by Colum McCann. Read for you by Richard Poe, Gerard Doyle, Carol Monda, Johanna Parker, Ramon Diocampo, Chris Sorensen, Patricia R. Floyd, Jim Frangione, Alma Cuervo, Lizanne Mitchell, and Charisse Booth.
All the lives we could live, all the people we will never know, never will be, they are everywhere. That is what the world is. From The Lazarus Project by Alexander Hammond. Those who saw him hushed. On Church Street, Liberty, Cortlandt, West Street, Fulton, Vesey. It was a silence that heard itself, awful and beautiful. Some thought at first that it must have been a trick of the light, something to do with the weather, an accident of shadow fall. Others figured it might be the perfect city joke, stand around and point upward until people gathered, tilted their heads, nodded, affirmed, until all were staring upward at nothing at all, like waiting for the end of a Lenny Bruce gag. But the longer they watched, the surer they were. He stood at the very edge of the building, shaped dark against the gray of the morning. A window washer, maybe, or a construction worker, or a jumper. Up there, at the height of 110 stories, utterly still, a dark toy against the cloudy sky. He could only be seen at certain angles, so that the watchers had to pause at street corners, find a gap between buildings, or meander from the shadows to get a view unobstructed by cornice work, gargoyles, balustrades, roof edges. None of them had yet made sense of the line strung at his feet from one tower to the other. Rather, it was the man-shape that held them there, their necks craned, torn between the promise of doom and the disappointment of the ordinary. It was the dilemma of the watchers. They didn't want to wait around for nothing at all, some idiot standing on the precipice of the towers. But they didn't want to miss the moment either. If he slipped, or got arrested, or dove, arms stretched. Around the watchers, the city still made its everyday noises. Car horns, garbage trucks, ferry whistles, the thrum of the subway. The M22 bus pulled in against the sidewalk, braked, sighed down into a pothole. A flying chocolate wrapper touched against a fire hydrant. Taxi doors slammed. Bits of trash sparred in the darkest reaches of the alleyways. Sneakers found their sweet spots. The leather of briefcases rubbed against trouser legs. A few umbrella tips clinked against the pavement. Revolving doors pushed quarters of conversation out into the street. But the watchers could have taken all the sounds and smashed them down into a single noise, and still they wouldn't have heard much at all. Even when they cursed, it was done quietly, reverently. They found themselves in small groups together beside the traffic lights on the corner of Church and Dye, gathered under the awning of Sam's barber shop, in the doorway of Charlie's Audio, a tight little theater of men and women against the railings of St. Paul's Chapel, elbowing for space at the windows of the Woolworth building. Lawyers, elevator operators, doctors, cleaners, prep chefs, diamond merchants, fish sellers, sad-gened whores, all of them reassured by the presence of one another. Stenographers, traders, delivery boys, sandwich board men, card sharks, Con Ed, Ma Bell, Wall Street. A locksmith in his van on the corner of Dye and Broadway. A bike messenger lounging against a lamppost on West. A red-faced rummy out looking for an early morning pour. From the Staten Island ferry they glimpsed him. From the meat-packing warehouses on the west side. From the new high-rises in Battery Park. From the breakfast carts down on Broadway. From the plaza below. From the towers themselves. Sure, there were some who ignored the fuss, who didn't want to be bothered. It was 7:47 in the morning, and they were too jacked up for anything but a desk, a pen, a telephone. Up they came from the subway stations, from limousines, off city buses, crossing the street at a clip, refusing the prospect of a gawk. Another day, another dolor. But as they passed the little clumps of commotion, they began to slow down. Some stopped altogether, shrugged, turned nonchalantly, walked to the corner, bumped up against the watchers, went to the tips of their toes, gazed over the crowd, and then introduced themselves with a "wow," or a "gee whiz," or a "Jesus H. Christ." The man above remained rigid, and yet his mystery was mobile. He stood beyond the railing of the observation deck of the South Tower. At any moment he might just take off. Below him a single pigeon swooped down from the top floor of the Federal Office Building, as if anticipating the fall. The movement caught the eyes of some watchers, and they followed the grave flap against the small of the standing man. The bird shot from one eave to another, and it was then the watchers noticed that they had been joined by others at the windows of offices, where blinds were being lifted and a few glass panes labored upward. All that could be seen was a pair of elbows, or the end of a shirt sleeve, or an arm garter. But then it was joined by a head, or an odd-looking pair of hands above it, lifting the frame even higher. In the windows of nearby skyscrapers, figures came to look out. Men in shirt sleeves and women in bright blouses, wavering in the glass like funhouse apparitions. Higher still, a weather helicopter executed a dipping turn over the Hudson, a curtsy to the fact that the summer day was going to be cloudy and cool anyway, and the rotors beat a rhythm over the warehouses of the West Side. At first the helicopter looked lopsided in its advance, and a small side window was slid open as if the machine were looking for air. A lens appeared in the open window. It caught a brief flash of light. After a moment the helicopter corrected beautifully and spun across the expanse. Some cops on the West Side Highway switched on their misery lights, swerved fast off the exit ramps, making the morning all the more magnetic. A charge entered the air all around the watchers, and, now that the day had been made official by sirens, there was a chatter among them, their balance set on edge, their calm fading. And they turned to one another and began to speculate. Would he jump? Would he fall? Would he tiptoe along the ledge? Did he work there? Was he solitary? Was he a decoy? Was he wearing a uniform? Did anyone have binoculars? Perfect strangers touched one another on the elbows. Swear words went between them, and whispers that there'd been a botched robbery, that he was some sort of cat burglar, that he'd taken hostages. He was an Arab, a Jew, a Cypriot, an IRA man. That he was really just a publicity stunt, a corporate scam, drink more Coca-Cola, eat more Fritos, smoke more parliaments, spray more Lysol, love more Jesus. Or that he was a protester, and he was going to hang a slogan. He would slide it from the tower ledge, leave it there to flutter in the breeze, like some giant piece of sky laundry. Nixon out now. Remember Nam, Sam. Independence for Indochina. And then someone said that maybe he was a hang glider or a parachutist. And all the others laughed. But they were perplexed by the cable at his feet. And the rumors began again. A collision of curse and whisper, augmented by an increase in sirens, which got their hearts pumping even more. And the helicopter found a purchase near the west side of the towers, while down in the foyer of the World Trade Center, the cops were sprinting across the marble floor, and the undercovers were whipping out badges from beneath their shirts, and the fire trucks were pulling into the plaza, and the red-blue dazzled the glass, and a flatbed truck arrived with a cherry picker, its fat wheels bouncing over the curb, and someone laughed as the picker kiltered sideways, the driver looking up, as if the basket might reach all that sad, huge way. And the security guards were shouting into their walkie-talkies, and the whole August morning was blown wide open, and the watchers stood rooted. There was no going anywhere for a while. The voices rose to a crescendo, all sorts of accents, a babble. until a small red-headed man in the home title guarantee.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?